Wow, it really feels incredible to be sitting down here talking to you guys about my last day ever as a foundation doctor. It honestly feels like yesterday I was making the very first video on this channel about becoming a doctor. You know, I remember making the video about my graduation from King's College and the very first few videos about being a doctor. And here I am 2 years later, sat down talking to you guys about the last 2 years and just reflecting on my final day as a junior doctor, which I had just yesterday. So before I start this video, I want to start by saying thank you so much to everyone who has supported me on this journey. It has been a long journey of making videos on the internet, all the way back in first year of medical school, throughout the last 2 years as working as a doctor, and now finally on the future of this channel. So I want to make a huge thank you to all of you guys who supported me in the last couple of years, and also hopefully continue to support me over the next few years. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. So my last shift ever as a doctor was actually a night shift, and I wrote down with a piece and piece of paper and pen around 4 o'clock in the morning everything that I wanted to sort of reflect on over the last 2 years. I also wrote down a bunch of things that I'm very excited for over the next couple of months to come, what I'm very worried about as well, and also finally I'll be touching on my future plans in the next coming weeks to months to years. So let's go ahead and start off by talking about reflection. So there's a few things I wanted to touch on regarding reflecting over the last 2 years, and the first one being, it's crazy how time flies and moves so quickly when you're a doctor. And I feel like being a doctor is one of those careers that makes time pass by so much quicker. Like, I've worked in a few things, a few places before I started to work as a doctor. I worked as a scientist, I worked as a bartender, a waiter, a Mexican food preparer. Like, I've literally worked so many jobs in the past, but I feel like work as a doctor has sped up the passage of time tremendously. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you're constantly learning, you're constantly on a treadmill, and every 4 months you're moving on to the next team, the next specialty. And I feel like that accelerates time so quickly. If I was working in one place where it was a 9-to-5 job and I was working, in the same desk, the same area for a number of years, I feel like that would slow down time. But in medicine, every single day that you go to work, it's a challenge. Every single time you feel confident in a specialty, it's time to rotate onto the next specialty. And again, you start in a different ward, sometimes a different hospital, even sometimes a different area of the county you live in, and everything starts completely new. And again, you're sort of at the bottom of the confidence, I guess, level, and you're learning a whole entirely new specialty with new supervisors. And I feel like that has really sped the passage of time, and as well as just dealing with death and dealing with the life as well, just generally dealing with life and death all the time. I feel like that really speeds up the passage of time. And if you're a medical student or you're a new doctor, trust me when I say that time is going to fly by over the next few months to years. And on that, I really wish I had sometimes enjoyed the journey a bit more. I feel like particularly my first year working as a doctor, so much of my kind of mental focus was on like learning how to be a good doctor, and learning how on-calls work, and learning how the whole thing about working as a doctor, how all of that works. And I feel like that at some points kind of took away from my almost enjoyment of that period of time, but not necessarily enjoyment, but it kind of made me focus so heavily on my job and start to forget the other aspects of my life. And I wish I took the journey a bit more slow at times, and I wish I enjoyed the journey a little bit more and took a step out of my job and a step out of work as a doctor to actually look at the whole entire picture and remind myself there are other things that were important in life. So that's one reflection that I have over the last couple of years. The next thing I want to touch on in terms of reflection is I learned so much about being a doctor. I feel like, in medical school, you do get as close as you possibly can to learning about the job as a doctor, right? There's no way that you can possibly be closer to learning about being a doctor apart from, being in medical school. However, there's things about medical school that they don't teach you. They don't teach you how the system works. They don't really teach you how getting annual leave and all of that stuff works. You don't really learn what it's like to be on call and what an actual on-call, shift actually means. I had no idea really. There's so many different types of on-calls, you work as a doctor. So I feel like med school is very different. And when I was on my final sort of placement, clinical placement in medical school, it was the exact same hospital that I started working as a doctor, like literally 3 weeks later. So I went from one day being a medical student, the next day being a doctor, and I feel like the change was quite drastic. Like nothing almost prepares you for that change from being a medical student to then having so much responsibility and literally having lives in your hand when you start work as a doctor. So I learned so many good things about how to be a doctor. I learned a few bad things about, what it's like to be a doctor. But most importantly, I learned so much about myself. Throughout the entire time of working as a doctor, seeing life, seeing a lot of death, being at the bedside with families at their worst points in life and at their best points in life as well, when they, let's say, have a new baby, for example. That really teaches you a lot about yourself. I feel like I've learned how to work under pressure. I've learned how emotional I am and can be at some points. I've learned so much about my ability to cope as a doctor, and more about my personality, which I've never known about in the past. And it really has allowed me to grow as a person. And I feel like the Kenji that I am 2 years later is so different to the Kenji that I was when I first started work as a doctor. I feel like it's literally night and day because of all of these experiences I had, working in the NHS as a doctor. So that is sort of the reflection. Let's start, moving on to the more juicy aspect of things, which is what I'm worried about. Like now, the transition between finishing work with a permanent contract to now, not having to go to work anymore. It's going to be so weird tomorrow morning, waking up and not feeling like I have to be anywhere. Every single day of the last 2 years, I've seen my rota. I've known what my next week would look like. I knew how many hours I was going to work. I knew exactly how much I was going to earn at the end of the month. Whereas now, when I look ahead of my schedule, it is quite scary to look at and be like, oh, I don't have to be anywhere at any particular point. Like waking up tomorrow morning and even going to bed tonight is going to feel super, super strange. And that really is the first point, not having any work obligations. There's something at the back of my mind that, that's sort of like, am I going to be lazy? Am I going to get too comfortable with not having to go to work? Like, I know what I'm like. I know that I work hard and I know who I am as a person, but there's always that thought at the back of your mind, like, what are you going to be like, Kenji, without the need to be somewhere? Even before working as a doctor, during medical school, during my last degree, literally over the last 10 years, I had a plan of exactly how my life is going to be like and where I'm going to be every single day. So not having that anymore is also a bit of a fear in terms of not having any obligations when it comes to work. Now, another thing that I'm also a little bit worried about is not having a guaranteed salary. That's going to be so weird. I knew that on the 24th of every single month, I was going to get X amount of money in my bank account, which will cover all of my bills. But now I'm not going to be on a permanent training contract, which means that how much money I earn at the end of the month is going to be entirely based on how hard I work. It's going to be based on how hard I work on YouTube, all the other sort of side businesses that I have, all the other, locum work that I do. It's going to be entirely based on my effort and how hard I work in terms of, how much money I get at the end of the month. And it's particularly worrying, I think, in this, current financial climate. Expenses are going up, the cost of living is going up. I've moved into a new apartment. I have a studio now, like, you guys are seeing in the background. These are all additional expenses that I've chosen to take up and I have to pay for. Having that in the back of my mind is also a bit worrying. And I essentially have to work harder in order to find opportunities. It wasn't like I said, the last 10 years where everything was sort of handed to me. Like, of course I had to work hard to be a doctor and of course I had to work hard to get into medical school. But from that point where I started work as a doctor, or from the point where I got into medical school, everything was sort of handed to me in terms of, I had to just attend university. I had to just go to work and I would get paid at the end of the month and I'd move forward in terms of where I want to be. Whereas now it's a little bit frightening that literally everything is all up to me. And if I want to move forward in life and I want to, save up money and things like that, then everything is all down to me and it's all down to me finding opportunities and making the most of those opportunities. So that's a little bit strange as well. And on that topic, the other things that sort of worry me as well is there's no more annual leave and there's no more study leave. And I don't get all of these sort of benefits that came with working as a full-time doctor. When I was a doctor full-time, if I decided to go on holiday for 2 weeks during my rotation, I would still get paid. If I was unfortunately unwell and I couldn't go to work for a week, I would still get paid. Whereas now, like, what happens if I get sick? Like, what happens if unfortunately I get unwell and I'm not able to work for, let's say, a month or two? Like, what's going to happen in those circumstances? What if I can't run my business because of being unwell? All of those things are sort of at the back of my mind, which also, to be honest with you, motivate me. They really, really do motivate me. There's something about me in my heart that sometimes likes a bit of fear inside of me. Like, I like the unpredictability and the bit of fear that comes with being on my own. I guess that's sort of a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. And it also motivates me to work so much harder because I know that right now, the harder I work, the more I get and the further I go ahead in life. And the more work I put in, the more, fruit that I sow at the end of the month. So although it is a little bit scary, I also am sort of excited when it comes to, being on my own, I guess, you can say, when it comes to the finances. The second thing that I'm sort of scared about when it comes to the next few months is not being in a formal training post. And again, like I said, guys, the last 10 years have all been a treadmill and everything, whenever I finished one thing, I always had the next thing planned. I always knew that a year from now I'll be here in this place, and 2 years from now I'll be in this place. When I was a medical student, I knew where I was going to be on placement for the next 3 years. When I was a final year medical student, I knew where I was going to be for the next 2 years working as a doctor. But for the first time ever, I'm not going to be in any official training position, whether that be studying or training as a doctor. And that is kind of scary because I feel like I don't want to lose the sense of belonging to a tribe or belonging to a culture when it comes to medicine. And to be honest with you, over the last few months, I sort of have felt a little bit alienated, not by my colleagues, but literally by me personally. I felt like I was slowly losing a sense of belonging, or belonging like I have a tribe. And the reason for that is I guess all my friends and colleagues were all discussing their future opportunities, talking about going to Australia, talking about looking forward to joining, their training, their pediatric training, whatever it might be. They were all discussing their next steps, and I sort of had nothing to say. Like, of course, in my mind, I have so many plans about the future, but when it comes to medicine in particular, I didn't really have much to talk about when it came to moving forward as a doctor. Oftentimes my consultants, my seniors would ask me, Kenji, what's the plan? What are you doing for the next 4 months? And my answer was like, I don't really have one when it comes to medicine right now. That was very strange, and I definitely felt a bit lost when it came to feeling that sense of belonging to a tribe. On that point, I also don't want to lose a sense of being attached to the system. I feel like if I don't have a training post, if I'm doing something different, I have other plans, I feel like I may lose touch with the system, which is progressing in medicine and the NHS. And that's definitely one thing at the back of my head, because I do love medicine so much, and I do really enjoy working as a doctor in certain specialties. So that is one fear at the back of my mind. Like, what will it be like not having a training post for a year? Will I lose touch of this entire thing? Will I, not be able to progress? Like, those are things at the back of my mind that I'm sort of dealing with as we currently speak. Now, the third and probably one of the most scariest things about the future right now is, what if everything goes wrong? And I feel like everyone or every sort of entrepreneur has this feeling at the end of the day. What if my business dies? What if this YouTube channel doesn't do well and my businesses stop doing well? What if they don't work out? What if I, like I said, get sick or I can't work for whatever reason? What if there is no locum work available? I still want to carry on working as a doctor, and what if I just can't find any work as a doctor? What's going to happen in those circumstances? Like, that is definitely something at the back of my mind, is what if this all goes wrong and I can't continue this? Like, that's probably one of the biggest fears that I have. If you have a backup and you have a full-time salary, or maybe if you work part-time, at least that if all goes to crap, you at least have a guaranteed salary at the end of the day. But a lot of the future is relying, like I said, on me. It's relying on my business is doing well and me going to work in other capacities. So that is definitely quite scary. But there are many solutions that I thought about. Like, I really thought about how I'm going to manage the next couple of months, and there are a few solutions that I want to touch on. So if all goes wrong, at the end of the day, like, I know I can just go back to medicine. I know that if I wanted a job tomorrow, I can speak to the right consultants that I know, or speak to certain people that I've met in the hospital, and literally tomorrow I can go back to full-time medicine, not necessarily in training, but I could just get a trust grade job as a doctor working in the hospital, and again I'd be back on the same guaranteed salary that I had recently when I was working over the last 2 years. So at least I know that worst came to worst, I can just go back to medicine and I can just get another job as a doctor. The second thing that I could always do at the end of the day as a backup, if I really had to, is also just get a job outside of medicine. I still have a degree in biomedical science. I still have loads of skills that YouTube has taught me and running these businesses have taught me. So if worst case scenario happened, I could always just apply for a job as a research publisher. I could work as a go into biomedical science as a scientist later on. Like, I do have other skills and other degrees that at the end of the day, if World War III happened, I could still get a job and pay my rent. But most importantly, over the last couple of years, I've worked super hard to try my best to make sure that I have systems in place to help me right now on this path. I have a bunch of investments that, give me money every single month, and thank God have been really helpful when it comes to living costs, and definitely make me feel more confident about the future. I have savings as well, and I really want to carry on building my savings so that I know that if I can't work for 3 or 4 months, at least I have enough money on the side to sustain myself and my family as well. I also have access to loans. Worst case scenario, it's really important to know that if a huge bill came up, I do have access to low interest rate loans that I can access if I really needed to, if my savings weren't enough and my investments were enough. Worst case scenario. But also I have a huge amount of credit available to me. I don't want to use credit, and that's not my goal. That's not my plan. But it's also really important, guys, to make sure that you have all of these backups in place so you can never be homeless or not be able to feed yourself at the end of the day. If you need to take a loan, if you need need to use a credit card for whatever big purchase, it's nice to know that there are, those safety mechanisms in place. Worst case scenario, if God forbid I ever need to access them as well. And finally, guys, and very honestly speaking, I think the number one thing that I'm so scared about on this next journey of, leaving work as a permanent doctor is never going back. And what I mean by that is never going back to an official training post, never completing the journey to become a consultant. And the reason why that's so scary is, as I'm sure you guys have seen on YouTube, there's so many YouTubers that leave medicine, and I don't feel like I'm going to be one of them. I feel like I do enjoy medicine for what it is, and if I won the lottery tomorrow, I would still work as a doctor. But at the end of the day, like, at the back of my head, I guess you don't know what you don't know, and I don't know what it's like to never, work as a doctor. I don't know what it's like to have your time in your own hands and have your schedule in your own hands and to work full-time as an entrepreneur. I don't know what that's like, and at the back of my mind is something there that's like, what if I never go back and I have to let medicine go? Like, I don't feel like that's going to happen, but you never know, and like, never say never. I don't feel like that is my future, but I definitely am scared because of that. But not just in terms of like YouTubers and being an entrepreneur. What I have been told, and I'm just speaking to you guys from my heart and from what my colleagues have told me, I have friends who just locum. Like, I know so many people who are entrepreneurs and they run businesses all the time, and they maybe work in medicine 1 day a week. I have friends who work in medicine full time, but not on a permanent contract, and just as a locum doctor. And what they tell me is, Kenji, when you taste flexibility, when you have your time in your hands, when you're able to earn more money and you're able to plan trips ahead without having to fight for time off and all this annual leave stuff. When you taste that life, you will really, really struggle to come back. And my friends who indeed have actually come back into the system and have gone back to training have told me right now that they really are struggling, because they remember very clearly what it was like so recently to be able to have that freedom, to be able to have that flexibility, and it's such a different lifestyle. So I feel like when I taste this lifestyle that I'm about to start, it may make it very, very difficult to come back to a full-time medicine post where, you're working 70-hour weeks, your pay is very low, you're super stressed, and you're on a treadmill for the next 7 years to train to become a consultant, more night shifts, more weekends, more on-calls, being stuck your whole entire life, being stuck to a rota, having to beg the rota manager to give you time off so you can go and get married. I don't know if that life will be for me, but I guess I'm really excited to see what, this new journey will hold. And that's the final thing that I'm really, really kind of worried about. But let's move on to a more positive note, guys. Let's go ahead and talk about the things that I've been waiting for over the last 2 years. What am I excited for about the next, few months of having the freedom finally in what I'm going to do? And the number one thing that I'm so looking forward to is finally having the freedom. Like I've just touched on, guys, when you're a doctor and you have a rota, your life is 110% locked to that rota. You cannot step outside of that rota. You have to beg for time off. You have to, if you want to go on holiday, you have to swap all of your on-call shifts and beg your colleagues to give you, their shifts so that you can have that time off. It is so hard to live your life on a rota, and not just any rota, guys. It's not a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday rota. It is a rota with weekends, nights, on-calls, when there is no flexibility. If you have an on-call shift coming up, you have to swap it with someone else who's willing to do that shift for you in order to get time off. The rota manager will not help you. They will not make it easy for you to get those days switched. And I'm sure you guys have seen my past videos where my fiance was graduating and I had to fight to get 1 day off just to see her graduate. And that really, really made me unhappy when it came to work, to be honest with you. I'm really looking forward to getting back a sense of a normal life, being able to travel whenever I want to, being able to spend time with my family, finally work out on a regular basis. Unfortunately, work as a doctor has really made it so difficult just to have these normal patterns of life, to be able to work out consistently. Because when I'm on night shifts and when I'm on call, I just can't do that, to have a normal pattern and be able to get back to doing the things that I really was not able to do, unfortunately, or maybe didn't spend as much time as I should have when I was working as a doctor, is what I'm really looking forward to. So I'm honestly just looking forward to rebuilding my life outside of medicine. Don't get me wrong, medicine does not stop your whole entire life from working, but when you're a junior doctor on a training contract, it makes it very difficult, to be honest with you guys, to fill up the rest of the pies that you have that are really important to you, like social life, spiritual life, all those sort of things. But most importantly, being able to make future plans ahead and not have to think, am I on call then? Do I have to beg for time off? One of my best friends actually messaged me the other day and was like, Kenji, I'm getting married in January. Can you make it? I know you're a doctor and your schedule has often been very difficult. difficult. I know you haven't showed up to many things in the past, to be honest with you, but I was like, bro, don't worry, I will be there, like by hook or by crook, I will be there. Do not worry, because now I can just literally block off my timetable 5 months ahead and not have to think, oh, I'll be on the next specialty. I don't know my rota yet. I don't know who my rota manager is. I can block off my time and know for certain that I will be there, and I can tell my friends and my loved ones that I will be there, no questions asked. So that's the number one thing that I'm really looking forward to over the next few months. But also just looking forward to just having a nice rest. I cannot tell you guys how in the last 10 years, I have not had a single period of time where I can just not worry about the future, not worry about, the next step in my life. The last 10 years have been my first degree and getting into medicine. Then it was when I was in medicine and getting through medical school. Then it was like getting into my first choice bunch of specialties and my number one, hospital location that I really wanted to get into. Then it was, working hard to be a doctor. Like my whole entire life, guys, I have not had a chance just to rest and free my mind from this treadmill, this constant treadmill of progressing. So although I do have a huge number of shifts over the next 3 weeks, I have probably 60, 70 hour weeks that I'm working over the next 3 weeks, because August is a very busy month and I do want to, sort of, I guess you can say, capitalize on the ability to locum and earn a lot over the next few weeks, and also all the sponsors I have coming up on the YouTube channel. But once that is all done, and maybe the early September when things calm down a little bit, I really want to take a bit of a holiday for maybe a week or two and just do nothing, literally sit on the beach and do nothing and reflect over the last 2 years and reflect over the next few months. So I'm really looking forward to just having a bit more of a slower, I guess you can say, paced life in future. I'm also really excited to hopefully be able to earn more. When I was in a training program, like I said, my rota just governed my life. I was earning probably about £14 per hour in my first year. I was earning about £18 per hour in my second year working as a doctor. So my whole entire 50, 60 hours of that week were on a fixed rate, which was £18 an hour most recently. I'm really looking forward to trying my best to earn as much as I can to save for the goals that I have in my future. Hopefully if I do a few locum shifts, I'll be earning much more than that, maybe £60 an hour. I'll be able to do YouTube and make these videos and work on, and finally have more time to work on my businesses and earn even more money, and have that money to put aside to finally save for my future and all those goals that I have moving forward. So I'm super excited about that. And finally, what I'm looking forward to as well is having the flexibility to only work where I enjoy and where I want to. I've had no choice for the last few months of who I work with and where I work and in what specialties I work. Of course, I chose certain specialties, but there were some specialties that I had no choice and I just had to work them. Whereas now I can choose when I work, I can choose who I work with. If I feel like a team is just, not respecting me and is not very nice, I can just leave and I can go to a different hospital, or I can go to a different, ward. I can choose the specialties that I only want to work in, and only the specialties that I want to enjoy and I do enjoy. And again, like I said, if I don't want to go to work and I don't want to, work as a doctor for a few weeks, then I can just stay home and I can do the work that I also enjoy on my laptop and make videos and all these other things. So I'm super excited to be able to control my time and work only where I want to work. But finally, let's move on to the last part of the video, guys, which is what are my future plans over the next year, maybe 2 years. So firstly, I want to be very open to opportunity. Over the last couple of months, like I said, I've been locked. If I had someone message me saying, hey, there's a new business opportunity, I couldn't take it. If I had someone message me saying, hey, there's a conference in Romania, that there's a YouTube conference or a health conference you can go to, or in London, a lot of the time I just couldn't attend, and I couldn't see where serendipity could take me because of, unfortunately, being locked to such a schedule. So I'm really open to new job opportunities, new investment opportunities, new business opportunities. I want to see where the future takes me, and I'm super excited to have a schedule that will finally allow that. In terms of future plans as well, I really want to get back to working on YouTube, guys. I know this last 2 years I have been somewhat consistent, but there are periods of time which you may have noticed where my video quality kind of went down a little bit. The content was a bit less exciting, and the reason for that is because a lot of the time I was just trying to put out videos and not being able to focus on the videos I wanted to produce. Not being able to sit down and research about certain topics I want to talk about and make a really good script to talk to you guys about. My mind a lot of the time was so fatigued with the work as a doctor that I couldn't give my best to YouTube. So I'm super excited to hopefully come back, guys, stronger than ever, make really fun, interesting topics for you guys, and keep, making content, for you guys to enjoy and watch. So YouTube is another thing. The next plan that I have as well, guys, I will continue to maintain my skills. I'm not leaving medicine, forever. I will continue to work as a doctor, but as a locum doctor. And I'm sure you guys have seen on my channel all the, videos I made about locuming. But I probably will be doing mainly pediatrics Pediatrics is currently the specialty that I'm interested in, probably pediatric dermatology actually. And I really, really enjoy pediatrics. Like, there's not a second I spend in pediatrics like dreading my time at work, because I love working in pediatrics, and that is, honestly speaking, I feel myself growing so much as a doctor, particularly in pediatrics. So I will mainly be doing pediatrics. However, I do also have a few shifts coming up in psychiatry. I also have a lot of shifts, actually probably half of my shifts coming up in August will be in internal medicine. I think I've got a week in hematology or heme oncology, which I've never worked in, that I'm super excited to work in as well. So I will be working part-time as a doctor, and I probably will be doing maybe 2 days a week, maybe 3 days a week as a locum doctor mainly in pediatrics. And let's see how it goes. Like, if I miss medicine so much, then I'll just do 5 days a week as a locum. If I feel like I actually want to do more YouTube and more of the business stuff, then I might drop it down to 1 day a week. But most importantly, I will continue working as a doctor, and I will continue to maintain my skills and grow in my career as a doctor. I will also be thinking about doing some exams. So as I said, pediatrics is currently what I'm thinking about. I might actually during this time sit my pediatric exams. The next exam that's coming up is in October, so I might just get it out of the way. And because you can do these specialty exams at any point in your career, whether you're a first year doctor or whatever. So I'm going to look into maybe just sitting my 2 of the preclinical exams in pediatrics, just to make it easier, so that in future, if I do enter specialty training, I don't have to worry about those exams, because they're already out the way. And at the end of the day, if I choose not to do pediatrics, it will still be useful as a doctor to have extra diplomas in different specialties, just for my career generally. And yeah, that is pretty much it, guys. I'm so just very, very excited to see what the future holds. I'm really, really excited to be able to explore different avenues of work, of my career, of my business, and continue making these lovely YouTube videos for you guys. If you've made this fun video, please put a blue love heart emoji down in the comments. I would love to see how many people have actually made it to the end. But also, if you can, with that blue love heart emoji, let me know how long you guys have been on my channel. Like, when did you first discover me? When was the first video that you ever watched? And as I said, guys, from the very, very bottom of my heart, honestly speaking, thank you so much for joining me on this journey over the last few years. This is not the end. This is just the beginning. And I'm going to keep you guys posted as much as I can. I'm going to talk about, what it's been like being a locum doctor, how much I've been earning, the other ventures in my life that I've been going down, the different paths, do more vlog style, videos as well, take you guys along with me the entire journey. Thank you so much for watching and joining me on this journey. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.